Palestine never existed as a country. Palestine is the name of a group of people who lived on a piece of land at that time known as Palestine. I have a lot of friends who are Jews who are Palestinians.
Exactly.
Who were born in Palestine. Unfortunately, there is so much ignorance in the world today that, and because of the silence of the Jewish people in setting the record straight, because they don't want confrontation, let's not create waves. We don't want to debate anybody. You know, the Palestinians have been able to rewrite history while the Israelis and the Jews failed miserably in the PR department.
Hello, hello.
Good morning. How are you?
Good afternoon from the Holy Land. I just have to tell you that in the last 15 years, I've interviewed some real life legends, okay? Like from the founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak, to the man who invented the web browser, to just really the man who invented the Iron Dome, really, really amazing people. And I'm telling you, objective, like fact, I never, ever got this much excitement from my audience as I got from the fact that I'm talking to you. You cannot even imagine. The hundreds of messages, hundreds.
Happy.
Like, I was like, I mean, I knew you were a rock star, but I was like, whoa. I mean, I'm talking hundreds, like across all platforms. It was wild. Okay, so listen, I know you're a very busy person.
I love what you do. I love what you do. I look at your tweets, I look at your posts, and you're doing amazing work. And you cannot believe how many people told me you need to go in an interview with him.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Well, you know, guess what? So
okay,
here we
so
are. I'm so glad
yes.
we connected.
Thank you. I'm, you know, really just a big fan. Okay, so I want to, for maybe the 2.5 people on planet Earth that don't know you, give me your backstory in like 3 minutes, because I want to talk about it now, but the backstory is the context of everything. So give me your backstory.
You know, they say what shapes our life for the rest of our life are those formative years when we are growing up. Those are the foundation, you know, the 0 to 18 years. Those are the foundation of what you are going to be and what you are going to do for the rest of your life. I was raised in a Christian home in Lebanon. I was an only child. I came to my family, to my parents 22 years after they were married. So I was truly a miracle in their lives. By the time I came to the family, you know, my father was already retired. He was a successful businessman, built a lot of properties, was a real estate man. We owned the most famous restaurant in southern Lebanon in Marjayoun. So I lived a good life. I lived with a chauffeur to drive me to school and a living maid at home. Unfortunately, all that began to change in 1975 when the Palestinians started fighting. The Lebanese wanted to create a base from which to fight Israel, kill the Jews, and throw them into the sea. And they wanted to do that in Lebanon using Lebanese democracy to basically topple our democracy. A republic, let me put it this way, because we are a republic. It's very different than a democracy. We are exactly like the United States of America. And my 9/11 happened to me in 1975 when Palestinian radical Islamists blew up my home, bringing it down, burying me under the rubble wounded. I ended up in a hospital for 2.5 months and later ended up living in a bomb shelter underground in an 8x10 room without electricity, without water, and very little food because the Palestinians cut off all supplies, everything to our area, wanting to kill the Christians. And that's where I lived for the next 7 years of my life, robbed of my youth. My only window to the world was a black and white television operated on a car battery in the bomb shelter so we can see what's happening in the rest of the world. And, you know, that's how I lived. In 1982, Israel came in working with the Christians, trying to help the Christians take back their country and kick out the radical Islamic element that had taken control of the country at that time. By 1982, we had 11 Islamic terrorist organizations operating out of Lebanon, including the PLO. So the Christians worked with the Israelis because we knew we had more in common with the Jews than we had with the Muslims. So that's how the Christians started working with the Jewish people. That's how we came out of the bomb shelter and back to rebuilding our lives. I ended up moving to Israel in 1984, working in Jerusalem, becoming a news anchor for World News, based out of Binyanei Ha'uma in Yerushalayim, next to that, at that time, Hilton Hotel. And I lived in Mevaseret Zion, I lived in Talpiot, I lived in Saint Simon, I lived in Abu Tor. So I moved around and I lived in Israel till 1989 when I left Israel and came to the United States. And I
Wow.
thought I left all the crazies behind. September 11th, 2001 was a defining moment for the United States. But for me in particular, it was a defining moment because I'm a firm believer that no matter what we go through in life, no matter what trials and tribulation, what difficulty, every experience we go through is a defining moment, is something that prepares us to make a difference in the world. Because I believe that God doesn't change the world through lightning in the sky. God uses his people as instruments of change. And so I realized my purpose in life was to educate millions of uninformed Westerners, Americans and Westerners, about the threat of radical Islamic terrorism to world peace and our national security. And that's what started my activism.
Okay. I mean, I could listen to you talk all day long, but I have some questions. First of all, is it, and pardon me if this is not the case, but this was my first exposure to you, was your famous "The Silent Majority is Irrelevant." Was that like what you, like, made you a celebrity, or was there something before that?
Oh, no, that was something way before that. My first New York Times bestseller came out in 2006, titled Because They Hate. And for everyone watching us right now, it's about my life journey and my upbringing in Lebanon, moving to Israel, and from Israel to the United States. It became a New York Times bestseller overnight. I have 3 New York Times bestsellers, by the way. Most people don't know that. But that book is about my life story. And that book came out in 2006. And the success of that book was based on my organization, Act for America, which I launched in 2002, right after 9/11. And I launched Act for America because, again, I believe every single one of us in life has a purpose, has a destiny. And I was very fortunate that I found my destiny very early on. So through my organization, that's what brought my exposure. And ironically, I've got to tell you the story. I did not even want to be on that panel. That I was on the board of the Benghazi Accountability Committee. You know, when they killed our ambassador in Benghazi and the Americans, and nobody was held accountable in our government. And my lobbyist at the time said, you need to be on on this speaking thing. They're holding this afternoon event. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're a bunch of intellectuals. I'm not the intellectual, scholarly, talk legal mumbo jumbo. It's not me. It's not my personality. And she said, okay, you've got to go. So I'm sitting on that panel and I'm thinking, why did I do this to myself? Until that Muslim student, which, by the way, she was not a student. She was an Islamic lobbyist. She was 35 years old, attorney who had her own law firm, signed up as a student so she can use a student excuse for her political activism. And she was there for the sole purpose to bring up the issue of how conservatives are anti-Muslims. And that's when I answered that answer. And lo and behold, it's got over 50 million views right now. Somebody's making money off of that video, and it's not me.
I got news for you. You ready for this? Out of those 50 million views, about 49 and a half of them are me. I watched that video and shared it hundreds of times. Like, it is just pure brilliance. I was meeting with another Israel, advocate earlier today, Rachel Feldman, and I showed her that video, and she was like, "Oh my God, like, wow, it's really an unbelievable video." But okay, so let me see. Here's the thing. What I'm very happy. I mean, I'm very happy we're having this interview for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is that I know that I could take off the gloves and not be politically correct, because you hate political correctness as much as I do. So let me just jump in. In the beginning of this discussion, you referenced the word Palestinian several times, multiple times. Why do you call them Palestinians? Was there an Arab Palestinian state that I'm not familiar with, or is that a made-up propaganda term by the Arabs that call themselves Palestinians?
Well, that's the name of the people that ruined my country of birth. And that's the name of the people that destroyed Lebanon, that bombed my home. I still walk around with shrapnel in my bone because of what they did to me and to the Christians in Lebanon. So when we talk about the Palestinians, I'm referring to the Palestinians who were kicked out of Jordan, and Lebanon was the only country to accept the third wave of them. Us being, open-minded and fair and tolerant and multicultural. Lebanon used to be Paris of the Middle East, used to be the Switzerland of the Middle East under Christian control. And being Christians, coming from Judeo-Christian worldview of, do unto others what you want others to do unto you, treat people nicely, all of that stuff, we welcomed them in and they destroyed the country. So Palestine never existed as a country. Palestine is the name of a group of people who lived on a piece of land at that time known as Palestine. I have a lot of friends who are Jews who are Palestinians.
Exactly.
Who were born in Palestine. Unfortunately, there is so much ignorance in the world today that, and because of the silence of the Jewish people in setting the record straight, because they don't want confrontation, let's not create waves. We don't want to debate anybody. You know, the Palestinians have been able to rewrite history while the Israelis and the Jews failed miserably in the PR department. And so when you hear me speak as a child, as a survivor of war in Lebanon, created by the Palestinians who destroyed Lebanon, you know, I don't believe in political correctness. Anybody around me, I tell them before you enter the room, Brigitte Gabriel is in the room, throw your sensitivity sleeves out the window, because life is too important to speak in code words, not to offend anybody's feeling. There are two things in life, the truth and lies. And there's nothing in the middle. You're either lying or you're telling the truth. And so it's about time people who believe in the truth to develop a backbone and start speaking up authoritatively, unapologetically, in defense of the truth, because we owe it to our children to fight to keep the truth out so they can learn the reality that's going to shape their world.
Right. That's music to my ears, but I'm still going to push back. Okay, I still want to push back because, as you know better than anyone, words matter, right? Words matter, and you know, for better or for worse, by the way, and not to get too deep into it, but just an hour ago, I posted a thank you post for the really strong statements that the American administration put out. I don't obviously like them. I'm not a fan. Would never support Kamala. Not a fan of Biden. But they put out a strong statement, and I wrote and I said, listen, I always talk about how words matter. So words matter, and here they put out nice, strong words for their ally, and I thank them. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because, you know, you said Palestinians and you said the people that came from Jordan. So why are we not calling them Jordanians? Because when we call them Palestinians, what we're basically doing is we're validating their false narrative that there was an Arab Palestinian state called Palestine, that the Jews came and kicked the Arabs out of their homes and occupied the land, and no such Arab country ever existed. And so maybe we should stop calling them Palestinians, because that in and of itself is political correctness. Let's call them what they are, Jordanians.
Well, a lot of them are Egyptians. So you cannot say these are Egyptians and these are Jordanians, and you cannot differentiate between the two, because these people spread all throughout the Middle East, and they came from that part of the area that was known as, at that time, you know, Gaza was in the hand of Egypt, and the West Bank was in the hand of Jordan. It was Jordan. But that area at that time, even the Jews before the establishment of Israel were Palestinian. So Palestinian is referring to the names of the people that came from that land, and that's why we call them Palestinians. And you know, in a way, it's important to define who they are, because right now, when you look at the mayhem created throughout the Middle East, it's Palestinians who created mayhem in Kuwait. It's the Palestinians who created mayhem in Jordan. It's the Palestinians who created mayhem in Lebanon and destroyed Lebanon. They couldn't do it in Kuwait because of the royal family. They couldn't do it in Jordan because of the royal family. It's basically dictatorships, because there were Islamic countries with one-man regime who had his thumb on them. King Hussein of Jordan bulldozed 30,000 of them and kicked them out. And nobody dared challenge him, because who's going to dare challenge the dictator? We in Lebanon, being open-minded and fair and tolerant and multicultural, you know, again, that was what destroyed our democracy. They were able to destroy our republic because they used what made us successful against us. But it is these Palestinians, of all the refugees in the world, there has been millions of refugees throughout history who basically migrated to different parts of the world because of war. Look, I'm in America because of war. If my country of birth was so hot, it's a shame, it's beautiful, but if it can afford me a great life, I wouldn't be living in America. I would be making my dream come true in Lebanon. But I'm living in America because I migrated, I became an American, and actually today, I am fighting Kamala Harris, who just pledged $157 million to be sent to Lebanon, while our people our American people, because America is my country of choice. There's a big difference between being birthed into a country and adopting a country by choice. You know, we become American. A lot of Jews migrated throughout the world. They became American. They became Australians. They became French. They became British. They adapted into their country. They became productive members of their new country, and they called it home. You do not see Jews who are French Jews so calling themselves, well, you know, we are originally from Spain and we're going to go back and liberate Spain or whatever. We adopt into our new countries. Palestinians are the only group of people who 4 generations later still talk about, this is the key to my house in Jerusalem because my great-great-great-grandparents gave me that key and they said, I shall never forget. This is suicide generation by generation. And
Right.
I think it is important to point it out how they are destroying their lives, their children's lives, their future generations' lives, because they are so married to hate, they cannot let go of it.
Right. I mean, you know, as you said, there's another thing that's unique about them is that the number of refugees is going up every generation, not going down. Like, it's unheard of. You know, the whole thing doesn't make any sense because it's one big lie. But, you know, once we're talking about words and rhetoric, there's so many things about this conflict, like I said before, that are just politically correct terminology that we use, even though we really shouldn't use it. Another one that comes to mind is the phrase, the West Bank. Why do we call it the West Bank versus Judea and Samaria? Because if we say Judea and Samaria, the word Judea sounds awfully similar to the word Jew. And if we call it Judea, it's kind of going against my agenda that Jews are indigenous to this land. And so when people say the West Bank, I mean, I say to them, I think you mean Judea and Samaria because these things matter. But here's my big question, okay? Because, you know, this conflict, this war is just a symptom of something much, much bigger, and that is the cancer of radical Islam. And like I said before, around most people, I have to, you know, tiptoe and walk on eggshells, not with you. And so here's my big question. What is going to happen with Western civilization? Because as it stands right now, as long as we don't recognize the cancer that lives amongst us, we're not going to be able to cure the cancer. We don't even recognize that we have a problem. So is this going to continue? Is radical Islam really going to take over Western civilization? If not, how do we cure that cancer? And if yes, how long do we have?
Western civilization is disintegrating from within, from the inside. But I am seeing rays of hope. Because if you look at what's happening in Europe right now, you are seeing what in America we would call a red wave, but we are seeing a wave throughout Europe by Europeans who are saying enough is enough. We are sick and tired of this. We do not want this. And it's not coming from the Jewish side of Europe, who stands for multiculturalism and inclusiveness and tolerance. I know tolerance is a big word in the Jewish language. I hate the word tolerance, because I would much rather be respected than tolerated. When people respect you, they respect you forever. If they tolerate you, they will only tolerate you as long as they have to tolerate you. Because the minute they get power, if they have no respect for you, they will come after you to destroy you. So that's why I am big on the word respect much more than tolerance. Look, we people who come from the Judeo-Christian world have it in our DNA. It is literally wired into our DNA. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Do not judge others lest you be judged. It's a part of our biblical foundation. I mean, from the Torah all the way to the New Testament, all the way to Revelation, we are programmed to have mercy on others, to change the world, to make it a better place, to love one another, to take care of one another, to nurture one another, to treat our enemies. In Christianity, it says, pray for those who trespass against you. Forgive those who trespass against you. I mean, even people who do you wrong, you're supposed to forgive them and do good by them. But that's our Achilles heel. And that's what Islamists are exploiting. And right now, we are seeing this in Europe, where people are saying we are dying. They know they are dying. As my friend Betty Orr said it brilliantly, Eurabia, heard the name of one of her books. She coined the term Eurabia. Eurabia became Eurabia back 20 years ago. In 2005, we were talking about Eurabia. Now you are seeing the result of years of capitulation, of years of cowardness, of years of trying to reason with people you cannot reason with. You see, in our culture, the Bible says, come, let's reason together. And this is exactly why you have Torah schools where we debate the Bible, where we argue every different point of view. Let's debate this verse. Let's learn how, could it be something else? Could it mean something else? Could we translate it something else? We debate and we agree to disagree. That's how we operate, people who come from the Judeo-Christian value system. Even if they are not religious, you can take an atheist in the West who doesn't believe or have never even read the Bible, yet they teach their children, Johnny, treat others the way you want to be treated. You should not be judging other people. You should be nice. You should be kind. Even atheists who don't even understand the Bible. But this is our foundation, and that's the foundation that built Western civilization and made Western civilization great. That is not what the Islamists believe. The Islamists believe everything 100% opposite of what we believe. And people, because they do not understand Islamic history, this is why, they say to me, oh, there are verses in the Quran that say, oh, you should be nice. And if you kill one life, you're responsible, blah, blah, blah. And I tell them, yes, but Surah 9 in the Quran, which is the last surah, one of the last surahs in the Quran, it says kill the infidels. And that's when we see all the violent verses. And in the Quran, there is the law of an-nasakh wal-mansukh, the law of abrogation. If a later verse contradicts the first verse, the latter verse wipes off the first verse, and the latter verse becomes the law. And that's why when we see Islamists and moderate Muslims get into a debate, the Islamists always win the debate because the law is on their side.
Right. Wow. I mean, I really I want to pause this conversation and just ask you a personal question. When I speak publicly and give lectures, something that everyone says to me is how passionate I am. And, and if it's exhausting, and, it's true, it is exhausting. Do you ever have a down? Because you are the most passionate person I know. How do you not get tired?
Oh, thank you. I'm passionate about what I do. I love what I do. Like I said to you, I know the price of evil. I walk around with shrapnels in my bone. I just took a shower an hour ago. Guess what I looked at? Guess what I had to lather and soap? Do you think I'm going to forget about war? This is the reminder that I live with, that nobody else has to live with. I dream. Last night, I had a nightmare about the war. I'm watching what's happening in the Middle East right now. I cannot pull myself away from the news. Why? Because it affected me personally. You do not forget these things that shape your life. Today, I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother. I have something to preserve for the future, and I will not allow, and I'll give you an example as to why I started my organization, Act for America. On 9/11, I was watching television, and the images of the World Trade Center come down and again and again and again. My two daughters came home from school that day, and they did not tell them at school what had happened. So my daughter came in, she's watching the images of the World Trade Center come down, and she said, Mommy, why did they do this to us? And I found myself looking into my daughter's eyes and repeating to her the exact same words my father said to me when I was a 10-year-old little girl wounded in a hospital in Lebanon. And I asked my father, why did they do this to us? And my father told me, they hate us because they consider us infidels and they want to kill us. I had to look into my daughter's eyes and repeat the same words to her. Here we were, 2 generations apart. She was a 10-year-old little girl who spoke English. I spoke Arabic. She was an American. I was Lebanese. 8,000 miles apart, 30 years apart, 2 continents apart. I had to repeat to my daughter the same words my daddy said to me. That day was my defining moment. That day I vowed that I will do everything I can to make sure that my daughter will never, ever have to look into her child's eyes and repeat to her or to him yet unborn that my daddy said to me and what I said to her. That day I was reborn as an activist. Before that, I was a television executive. I owned a TV production company. My clients were Oprah, ABC, NBC, CBS, Inside Edition, Dr. Phil, the biggest shows on television in America. I was living the American dream. I could have continued enjoying the perks of the entertainment industry, becoming a multimillionaire. But like I said earlier, I'm a believer that every one of us has a destiny. We go through experiences so we can maybe a tool to change the world. And I found my destiny on that day. And that's when I decided to start my organization. And here we are, 22 years later, We have passed 253 bills on the federal
Wow.
and the state level. 8 million people a day we reach on social media. Activists on 97% of U.S. territory, able to impact election and impact policy.
Wow.
And that's what the passion of one person can do.
Incredible. I'm proud to say that we have more things in common than I realized. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story of my older brother, Ari Fold. You know the story or not?
No,
You're not familiar?
no.
So my brother, Ari, was a very big, strong Israel advocate for many years. And 6 years ago tomorrow, he was walking in Efrat near Jerusalem, shopping for his family, and a kind Palestinian boy, who I'm going to call an Arab boy, came from behind. I think he was 16, and he stabbed Ari in a main artery in his neck. Ari then chased him down and shot him. Didn't kill him, but he basically saved a woman who the terrorist was about to murder. And then Ari unfortunately dropped dead. He has since become a hero of the state of Israel. But like you said, you've experienced radical Islam on your skin and on your body. I unfortunately was pulled into the conflict through the loss of my older brother Ari. By the way, after this. Yes.
A turning point in your life.
100%. And by the way, side point, whenever you have a few minutes, Google him, because I think you'd find his story very fascinating. I think you also had a lot in common, but that's one thing we have in common. And the second thing we have in common is that on October 7th, I did what you did, and I shut down my business, which was a multi-million-dollar consulting business, literally shut it down and refocused all my energies on defending Israel online and fighting what we call the digital war, because as much as we're winning the military war, the digital war, not so much. But anyway, so I want to ask you this. I mean, the big question that I'm sure you lose sleep over, I know I lose sleep over, is how? Like, you speak with such clarity, and it's so obvious that things that you're saying are truth. How does the world not see it? How is the Western world so blind to what radical Islam is? And you said it before, it's that we have core values that are at the foundation of everything we believe in. And our biggest problem, I think, is that we take those values and we think we can copy paste them to radical Islam, but they don't have those values. So my question is, how are we so blind? When I say we, I mean the Western world. And what do we do about that? How do we educate people to open their eyes?
Well, you know what they say, if you repeat a lie enough time, it becomes truth. And that's what the Palestinians did. That's what the Arabs did. That's what the Arab media did, helped and abetted to allow this lie to continue by Jewish lefties all throughout the West who silenced people like me. If you Google my name, the worst articles written about me are not by Muslims, are not by Arabs, but by Jews. The character assassination I experienced is not by Muslims, it's by Jews. I'm not even invited to speak to Jewish groups because I'm considered so controversial. They are so afraid to offend their lefty donors that they are willing to silence the Brigitte Gabriels of the world, cut off my funding. My organization, Act for America, is one of the most influential organizations in the United States. I solely rely on public funding because I don't get funding from the federal government because I don't want anybody to muzzle me. As you see, I'm very pro-Israel. I'm very outspoken. I'm very courageous because many people are afraid to even utter the words that I say. But I have such strong conviction that I am absolutely certain that if good people don't stand up and say something, evil dwells. And so I speak up. I'm willing to lay my life on the line, to speak up on the side of good, to speak up in the defense of good. And who are my enemies who are trying to kill me? Not the Muslims, not the Palestinians, but the Jews. And so they cut off funding to my organization. They literally paralyzed my organization, actforamerica.org. And while I'm on the topic, please, by all means, any of you watching, if you want to support, go to actforamerica.org right now and support my work. But
I know I will be going there and supporting your work because it's unbelievable what you're doing. But I have to say something in our defense. When I say our, I mean the Jewish people. We tend to repeat scripts, right? We this is what we do, and I'll tell you the script. And before I tell you the script, I'm going to say that I'm not a prophet, but I am a person who has his eyes open, much like you do. And 2 days before October 7th, and you could go verify these on my social media, I wrote a post saying, if you're paying attention to geopolitics right now between America and Iran, Russia and Ukraine, internal politics in America, internal politics in Israel, and you don't think something big is about to boil over, then you're not paying attention. And I wrote in the post, Israel will be at the center of it, literally 2 days before. Again, how did I know that? Not because I'm a prophet, but because I open my eyes and I see history. And I'll tell you the script that us Jewish people who I love to my core, our nation, but I'm trying to say this diplomatically, we're kind of dumb. Okay, we're kind of like blind. And this is what I mean when I say that. I mean, if you look throughout history, the script keeps repeating itself. There is an empire that grows and grows and grows and achieves world domination. And when it achieves world domination, the first thing that it does is it throws morality out the window, right? It puts people to fight to the death in the Colosseum. It gets rid of gender, just foundations of morality, just throw it out the window. And then that empire says, I don't want morality. And so they come after the Jewish people who brought morality to the world through the Bible, because they can't come after the creator of morality. So they come after the messenger, right? And then we, in every generation, it's the same exact thing. We come and say, hey, Romans, we're just like you. Don't hate us. In fact, we're more Roman than you, Romans. Hey, ancient Egyptians, you're enslaving us. 80% of us will stay back in Egypt and not go to the promised land, even though God did the 10 plagues and told us we're going to stay back because we're just like you. We're Egyptians, right? America, we're more American than you. Who are the most liberal people in America today? The Jews. We think, every generation, we think that we could convince our hosts that we're just like them. And you know what the host says to us every single time? They say, no, you're not. You're not just like us. In fact, we've developed a tool to show you that you're not just like us, and it's called anti-Semitism. And as soon as that happens and we're reminded who we are, it's tragic. We need Hitler to remind us who we are. Jews who didn't even know they were Jews were led to the gas chambers. Hitler had to remind us who we are, but we don't realize and we don't learn in every generation. And as soon as anti-Semitism spikes and goes through the roof, the next thing that happens in this script is that empire falls every single time. And unfortunately, based on the trajectory that we're seeing right now, anti-Semitism is not going to go back. It's not going to go back in the bottle. The genie's out. No. And so if we continue on this trajectory, it's not looking good for Western civilization. And I don't even think it's a prediction at this point, because half of Western civilization has already fallen. Maybe America's not there yet, but Canada sure is. The UK sure is. These places have fallen. And unfortunately, it looks like America will be next. But we, as a Jewish people, we come after people like you. We say, hey, we're liberals. Don't say these horrible conservative. No, we're crazy, because you're our sister. You have our back, and we need to have yours. And the fact that Jews, are assassinating your character is just, on the one hand, mind-boggling to me. On the other hand, not so much, because this is what we do.
It's so sad, it really is sad, because the Jewish people are the smartest people I know. I mean, here's how I put it together. They are individually brilliant and collectively stupid. And here's what I mean by that. And excuse my words, because the Jewish people are brilliant individually. I mean, brilliant, the greatest brains in the world. But when it comes to groups, seeing what's happening to them, like, you hear the phrase, never again is now, never again is now. How often did we hear that? But they were so blind to see that it's happening now. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. And when people like me were warning, anti-Semitism is on the rise, they want to kill you, they hate you, they do not have your goodwill for you. You need to wake up. They did not believe us. So they threw their friends under the bus and cozy up to their enemies. And that's exactly what happened. Jewish organizations in the United States, from the ADL. The ADL was the first organization to vilify Brigitte Gabriel, cut off all my funding in 2010. This was 15 years ago almost. Because I was speaking the way I was speaking. I could see the anti-Semitism back in 2010, 2009, 2008, 2006, 2005. They couldn't see it until now. They're waking up. Oh my gosh, everybody hates us. Well, those of us who were warning you, those of us who were standing by you, those of us who were mobilizing millions of people to stand in your defense, you shut us down, you silenced us, you destroyed us. If you Google my name on Wikipedia or anything on Google, you get horrible articles about me. And that's so sad. But you know what? Now is the time where we all need to come together. And one thing I want to point out, despite all the attacks, despite the character assassination, I never wavered. I never moved. I never blinked. I stood with Israel so strongly from the first day I launched my organization until now. In 2002, I launched actforamerica.org until now, and we are stronger than ever. The videos that I put out, the Thank You Israel, I just put out last week, has over 3.1 million views. I mean, we are reaching people like nobody else. And because I'm Lebanese, coming from a Lebanese background, I know I can say the same words you say, but people listen to them differently coming from me than coming from
Yeah.
you as Jewish. So I continue doing what I'm doing, and we've got to fight. Failure is not an option. This is a war between civilization and barbarism, and civilization must win. Civilization is on the side of Israel. Civilization is on the side of Judeo-Christian morals and values. Civilization is on the side of Western civilization. And we need to realize we are fighting barbarism. We are fighting people who can cut a woman's stomach open, take out a baby, and kill the baby while screaming, Allah is great, God is the greatest, because their religion actually congratulates them and encourages them to do so. This is barbarism. There is no other word for it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously, again, we completely see eye to eye on all of this. But I want to switch topics for 1 second because, the elections are coming up in the States, and obviously probably the most loaded, heated election maybe in the history of America. I know your opinions, of course. But, as I'm sure you do, I get a lot of pushback, a lot. And I'm not Mr. like, oh, Trump. I actually, and you'll forgive me for saying this because I know, we actually disagree on this. I don't think I would hire Donald Trump to babysit my kids. I don't like his personality. I think I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to, diagnose him. I don't like his personality, but you don't vote for a president for personality. You vote based on policy, and his policy speaks for itself. He was president for 4 years, right? And so when Kamala says the things she says, that she's saying the horrible things, she's probably going to act 10 times worse. But Trump acted, and he showed who his loyalty is, and how he is a friend of Israel. And so to those watching that, do care about Israel. I'm not talking about the people that, Israel's not on their radar, or that are voting based on abortion or voting based on immigration, all of which, by the way, are important topics. I'm talking to the people who deeply care about Israel and the future of the Jewish people who are still voting for Kamala. What do you say to them?
Look, like you said, I always say, vote for policies, not personalities. You're not going to vote. You cannot vote for a CEO. You don't hire a CEO. Look, you're a businessman. I'm a businesswoman, or at least we were until we decided to become full-time activists. You don't hire a CEO to run your company because his personality or because he's good looking or she's good looking. You hire a CEO because they're going to balance the budget, fire the fat from your organization, bring in great numbers for the board of directors, take the organization to the next level, prosper, grow. He's going to be the best thing for your organization. And someone who's going to come in, who's going to cut the fat, who's going to fire the lazy, who is going to be straight in your face, is not going to be liked by anybody, including the board of directors. But they do a good job. Donald Trump did a fantastic job when he was president of the United States. And here's what I tell people about vote for policies, not personalities. I started Act for America in 2002. George Bush was in office, whom I did not vote for him because I was a Democrat who voted for Al Gore. And so I didn't even vote for George Bush, the president who was in office. George Bush came to office and left. Obama came to office and left. McCain ran and lost. Romney ran and lost. Trump came and left. Biden came and left, leaving. And it doesn't matter who gets elected, whether Kamala or Trump. I and my organization will be here. Act for America will be here. So for the last 22 years since I started my organization, I've seen so many different presidents come and go. What's left of them is their policy. You don't hear anybody arguing right now on the internet, oh my God, I love George Bush. I'm going to give my life for George Bush. Who even thinks of George Bush right now? Or McCain, or Romney, or whoever who ran. Right now, we vote for policies. And Donald Trump's policies are immaculate, are fantastic for Israel and the world. America didn't go into war. There was not one war throughout the world. He brought peace to the world, did the Abraham Accord. What he did was incredible. We had money in our pockets. Gas was under $2. It was incredible. And speaking of his personality, I love Trump's personality, and here's why. Don't tell me who you are. Show me your children. I'll tell you who you are. How many billionaires do you know whose kids have the ethics that Donald Trump's kids have? How many billionaires do you know whose kids have the morals that Donald Trump's kids have? How many do you know of billionaires whose kids are losers? They're lost. They're lost because of the billions. They're lost because of all the money they got from their parents. Donald Trump's kids were never arrested, were never on drugs, never raped anybody, You don't have any videos of them losers, drunk, making fools out of themselves. If I want somebody to raise my children, I see his children. I want somebody like Donald Trump raising my children instead of all the other billionaire losers that I know, whose kids are an insult and an embarrassment to the parents.
Such as Joe Biden's kid, but that's a whole topic for another discussion. But
Kamala
wow,
Harris, Obama's kids, you name it, all of them, all of them.
It's a very interesting perspective. Actually, I have to admit, I never thought about that, but I actually like that a lot.
And by the way, I believe actions speak louder than words. This is one thing I want to share that most people do not know about me. You know, actions speak louder than words. This is something that my parents taught me. They drilled it into me as a young child. To honor my parents, I buried them in Israel. My parents are buried with Oscar Schindler on Mount Zion. If you have ever visited Oscar Schindler's grave, you have literally walked by my parents' grave, because I wanted to make sure that my children yet unborn will always know where my loyalty lies and will always be drawn to Israel. You can tell people who they are by their actions. Throughout the Trump administration, he moved the embassy to Israel. He worked on the Abraham Accord. He didn't care what all the distractors in America told him. You cannot move the embassy to Jerusalem because the Arabs are going to get angry. They're going to do this and the other. Because of his conviction, he never listened to anybody. It is those type of people like me, like Donald Trump, like you, who fight with such conviction that bring about change in the world. And those are the type of people that we need more of, speaking up and being involved in leadership to bring about peace into the world.
Amen. Amen. Every word, music to my ears. So let's pull it back, because we're running out of time, and I could talk to you for hours, but I want to ask about this specific war, and kind of your perspective on where it's going. We both know that Hamas and Hezbollah are just savage terrorist organizations that only understand force and power. We get it. But really my question to you is, we have this war that I think we can agree is probably the most complex war in the history of mankind, just because of the nature of Gaza and how they embed themselves in civilian populations. And the fact that we want to, on the one hand, obliterate Hamas, but on the other hand, they're the ones that are holding our hostages. And so we kind of have to negotiate with them. So how do you, as a, let's call it a, political, I don't know what's going on in my house right now. Hold on one second. What? Oh, there's a siren right now. Oh boy.
Go to your safe room. We can pick it up. I'll wait here. Go to your safe room.
No, we'll have to. I'm gonna have to run to the thing. We'll have to do.
Run.
Okay, so I'll end it now.
Wait for you here.
It's gonna take. No, don't wait. We'll continue. 15 minutes another time. We'll continue. Okay. 15 more minutes. Okay. We'll continue another time. Okay. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Be safe. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.